He's got somebody to call him out. And I think that's what happens with these guys is they get lonely and they get stagnant. And they don't have somebody to go, hey, we need to talk. You know, whereas I automatically have that. My wife won't let me not seek holiness. That's her vocation, and vice versa. I mean, if she ever did slack, which she's just a saint. She's a saint woman. Anyway, all right, let's talk about Pier Giorgio. Pier Giorgio died 85 years ago today. 85 years ago today. He was 24 years old. 24 years old. And he's beatified. Okay. The amazing thing is, his life was one where he lived for other people. So, I mean, I know for a lot of us we're thinking, well, you know, maybe I'll work on that sainthood thing years from now. But that's not what God wants of us. God wants us to live for others right now. And it doesn't, you don't have to even do it to the extremes that some of these people do. Because becoming a saint has nothing to do with being canonized. Did you hear that? Did you hear me? Becoming a saint has nothing to do with being canonized. I really mixed this up when I was in college. Because I would think ahead and go, all right, if someone was looking back on my life, would this be a story that they would tell? You know, seriously, because I took a course from Dr. John Carrick, God rest his soul. Oh my gosh, that man was so incredible. But he taught this course called Lives of the Saints, and I cried almost every single class. And I wasn't by myself. I mean, because he was talking about the glories of these saints. And the saints' lives are so beautiful, they should reduce you to tears. I don't care how manly of a man you are, or if you just are cold-hearted. It should reduce you to tears every single time when you understand their lives. Because they reflect God. And God is so beautiful, he should overwhelm you. Their souls become prisms. My soul magnifies the Lord. The Blessed Mother is of course, she's the epitome. She's the top. Perfect example. Perfect example. If you want to know what we're supposed to be, we're supposed to be like the Blessed Mother. Anyway, so he, wait, where was I?
I don't know.
He was 24.
Thank you. He was 24 years old. So he constantly said, yes, it wasn't about stories that we would tell later on. Like, he lived a life that there are lots of stories. I mean, lots of stories. Because it was just amazing the things that he did. By the time he died, he was taking care of about 150 families. Now, that doesn't mean that he was paying every single one of their bills or going and doing their laundry. It means that in some way, shape, or form, he was helping out. He was connected to, he was a benefactor to about 150 families. He was 24. And even though he came from a wealthy family, he himself personally was not wealthy. The only time that he really had an expendiary amount of money was when his dad, at 18 years old, gave him a car, and he drove it for 20 or 40 minutes, I can't remember, less than an hour, and then sold it. And he loved automobiles. They were brand new around that time. You know, there were, not a lot of them at that time in the early 1920s. Or, no, I'm sorry, it was 1918, really. So there weren't a lot of cars, and he loved them. He thought they were the coolest things ever. And he drove it around, and he had a ball, and then he sold it. And he gave half the money to the St. Vincent de Paul Society, and the other half to some other Catholic charities. So I mean, what it came down to was, it wasn't about him. He was living for others. He was just flat out living for others. Every time he had an opportunity to do something for someone, he actually did it. You know how sometimes, I mean, are you ever in this boat where you're sitting down, you're thinking, man, I could really do something great right now for someone? You ever thought about that? I mean, oftentimes I do that when I'm like sitting there watching a movie. And I'll be at home watching a movie. I'll be like, man, I should get up and like, I don't know, fold some laundry or get up and do something around the house. And sadly, oftentimes I go, yeah, it's a good idea. And that's why I can tell you I'm not a saint yet. Because a saint would jump up. And those are not necessarily stories that people are going to write about years from now. And he always got up and folded laundry.
Yeah.
Oh. I mean, there's nothing necessarily angelic about that, but that's what it means to be a saint. So you can be a saint and never be canonized. that finally kind of clicked